2 billion people follow a man who, by his own admission, believed that he met a demon. His story is not just preserved by history, but by the very scholars that his followers trust the most. In episode 1, we examined the very beginning of Muhammad's career prophetically, right? The cave of Hira, the violent encounter he himself initially feared was demonic, and the intervention of his wife's Christian cousin, Waraq. He interpreted the experience as divine from the Christian God. In this episode, we move forward in time to examine what happened after the revelations, and specifically what kind of revelations Muhammad began to receive once he had gained political power. So here is the question for every honest reader of the Quran, and this question is one that they must wrestle with. When a man claims to be receiving message from God, and those messages consistently solve his own personal problems in his favor, what does that really tell us? Imagine a televangelist or an evangelist, a pastor, a preacher who announces that God just told him his ministry needs more wife. Imagine a pastor who declares that God reveals to him that the 4-wife limit in his denomination does not apply to him personally, that he can marry more. Imagine a religious leader whose marital squabbles with his wife are meditated by his direct messages from heaven. We will not call that man a prophet or a man of God. We will call him either a liar, a scam, or something worse. And yet, this is exactly what we find in the most authentic Islamic sources about Prophet Muhammad. Not just in the Christian books, not just rejected books in the Muslim communities, but in their most trusted books. Sahih al-Bukhari, in Sahih Muslim, in Ibn Ashaq, al-Tabari, and even in the Quran itself. Classic Muslim scholars even has a name for the study of when each verses came down to Muhammad. It is called Asbab al-Nuzul. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. And it means the occasion of revelation, or the occasions of revelation. Muslim scholars have catalogued these occasions for centuries. They know when each verse was revealed, what circumstances prompted it, and what problem it solved. And many times for Muhammad himself. So in this episode, we will look through 4 document cases. In each case, the source is Islamic, and in each case, the question will be the same. Whose voice are we actually hearing? Is it the voice of the demon that showed up to Muhammad at the beginning? Is it the voice of Allah, or was it just Muhammad's appetite? In case study 1, there was a woman called Zaynab. Zaynab was Muhammad's first cousin, the daughter of his paternal aunt. She was, by the testimony of the earliest Islamic biographers, exceptionally beautiful. And in the early years of Muhammad's ministry in Medina, he had personally arranged her to marry a man called Zayd ibn Arita. I hope I'm correcting it. I'm pronouncing it correctly. Zayd was no ordinary man. He was a slave who was freed by Muhammad himself and then adopted him as though he was a son. This relationship was so close that for years, Zayd was not known by his own surname, but he was always called Zayd ibn Muhammad, which means Zayd, the son of Muhammad. He was, in every social, legal, customary sense, Muhammad's adopted son. So he was known as Muhammad's adopted son. Zaynab, his first cousin, happened to have married Zayd, which Muhammad himself personally arranged. According to the earliest Muslim historians, Muhammad visited Zayd at some point, and Zayd was not home. As he was leaving, a curtain at the door lifted, and Muhammad caught the glimpse of Zaynab in a state of nakedness. He turned away, and someone heard him say, "Glory be to God who turns the heart." Zaynab told her husband what had happened. Zayd, the adopted son, understood immediately. He went to Muhammad and offered to divorce her so that Muhammad would marry her. But there was a problem, a very serious problem, which is in the Arab customs, which was Muhammad's own previous teaching. They forbade marriage to the former wife of an abducted son. So it was not possible for Muhammad to marry the former wife of an adopted son, of his adopted son. To do so would be considered incestuous, which is you're sleeping with either a sister or someone in your family. It was a deeply ingrained social and moral boundary that they never crossed. And so we are told that Muhammad initially refused. He refused the offer, right? He told Zayd to keep his wife and conceal his desires. He feared what people would have said. Then a revelation came down from heaven. Quran 33 verse 37 says, "And remember, O Muhammad, when you said to the one whom Allah bestowed favor and who you bestowed favor, keep your wife and fear Allah, while you concealed within yourself that which Allah is to disclose, and you feared the people while Allah has more rights that you fear him." So when Zayd had no longer any need for her, we married her to you. So this is Allah talking to Muhammad and saying that, remember, the person that Allah had favored and the person that you favored, which is the son, you were telling him, keep your wife, conceal the desire you have to put her away because you should fear people. Now that Zayd no longer has any need for her, we married her for you in order that there might not be upon the believers any discomfort while the wives of the adopted son, when they no longer have any need for them. So it's basically saying that so that anywhere else, if anyone ever has a desire to marry their adopted son anywhere else, they can, because Allah is now saying that Muhammad can marry his adopted son. Just so that anyone else, wherever in the world, feels like marrying their adopted son's wife, they can marry. Is no longer, Alright, let's continue. So, let's read the verse very carefully. And there are things that we should admit from this verse. Muhammad himself concealed something, a desire that he didn't want to be known. He didn't want people to know. Number two, he feared what people would think. And of course, Zayd also feared what people would think. Why are you giving your wife or your ex-wife to your father, right? Number three, that what he concealed was something Allah was going to disclose. And then number four, that Allah himself, according to the verse, personally married Zaynab to Muhammad, not the people. So, it is customary that when you want to marry somebody, you reach out to the person's family and all of those things. And people had to be involved for the marriage to be legal and all of those things, right? Sometimes court and tradition, basically, right? But now, people are not involved, not her family, not by a contract, but Allah himself. So Allah is telling Muhammad, we married her to you. But the consequence does not end here. Because in the very same passage, the Quran also abolishes the entire Arab institution of adoption. To clear the way for Muhammad's marriage, adoption itself, which already signifies sonship, had to have been annulled. It means that for Muhammad to have married his adopted son's wife, then he couldn't have been adopted anymore. That means that adoption is no longer valid. It is either that or Muhammad is basically just sleeping with his son's wife. Either ways, it's not a good look. So let's continue. So chapter 33, same verse 4 to 5. Nor has he made your adopted sons. Look at that. So he's saying that God, Allah, has not made your adopted sons your true sons. That is merely by the saying of your mouth. But Allah says the truth and he guides the right way. Call them by the names of their fathers. So notice, there was a time where Zayd was known not by the name of his original father, because again, he was a slave that was freed by Muhammad. All of a sudden, there was a season, after seasons have passed, he started bearing Muhammad's name. And that in some culture, in many cultures, is known as adoption. This person is now your legitimate son. But all of a sudden, Allah is telling Muhammad, now notice that, and Muhammad is the only person that can hear this anyway. Allah is telling Muhammad that when you were calling your adopted sons your sons, it was not true. You were only saying it by your mouth, but Allah is the one that knows the truth. He says, call them by the names of their fathers. It is more just in the sight of Allah for them to be called by the names of their father, even though you adopted them legitimately. From this point, Zayd ibn Muhammad became Zayd ibn Haritha again. The fatherhood of Muhammad was revoked by revelation. Why? Because Muhammad wanted to marry, or Allah married Zaynab to Muhammad. To make absolutely sure that we are not exaggerating, let us hear what, Zaynab said in our own commentary. So, Sahih al-Bukhari, volume 9, book 93, hadith 517. Zaynab used to boast before the wives of the Prophet and used to say, Allah married me to the Prophet in the heavens. So from our own mouth, Allah married her to the Prophet in the heavens, not arranged by family, not arranged by a court or through contract. There was no negotiation through customary channels or through traditional channels. This came down directly from heaven, which is convenient because Muhammad wanted it. If a religious leader in any modern country saw a woman in a state of undress, fell in love with her, and announced that God had personally married her to him from heaven or in heaven, overriding both customs and traditions and even his own previous teachings, we will not call that prophecy. We would call it a lie or something even worse. Case study 2. The wife limits exemption. So, it is known, Quran chapter 4 verse 3, that Allah gave a law for Muslim men. The highest amount of wives a man can marry is 4. The highest amount. And that is what we say in Surah chapter 4 verse 3. And if you fear that you will not deal justly with the orphan girls, then marry those that please you of the other women, 2 or 3 or 4. But if you fear that you will not be just, then marry only 1. 2 or 3 or 4. That is the limit from Allah. For all Muslim men in all times, in all places, 4 is the maximum. There has been the law, for about 400 years. And Muslim men still practice it till today, no matter their promiscuity. Many Muslim devout men can marry 1, they will marry 2, they will marry 3. Many of them stop at 3, but then the highest, the maximum for them is 4. Muhammad had 9 wives. Muhammad had 9 wives. And it's crazy because he had 9 wives. It's crazy. By his own revelation from Allah, the maximum is supposed to be 4. But all of a sudden, Muhammad had 9 wives. And he also had concubines, right? I can list them, but the names are very, very, hard to pronounce, right? But one of them is still Zaynab, the older one that proposed to him. So, the concubines were about 3 of them. So, 4 is the limit. Muhammad had at least 9. The contradiction was so obvious. His own contemporaries pointed it out. And so a new revelation came down. Alright? A new revelation came down. Quran chapter 33 verse 50. O prophet, indeed we have made lawful. So again, this is Allah talking to the prophet through the prophet. Alright? Indeed, we have made lawful to your wives, to whom you have given their due compensation, and those your right hand possesses from what Allah has returned to you of captives. It's talking about the slaves that he freed and then married, and the daughters of your paternal uncles, and the daughters of your paternal aunts, and the daughters of your maternal uncles and their daughters also, who emigrated with you, and a believing woman, if she gives herself to the prophet, if the prophet wishes to marry her, this is only for you, excluding the other believers, in order that there will be upon you so discomfort, and ever is Allah forgiving and merciful. So Allah is saying, you've married about 9, right? You've married from your paternal uncle, from your paternal aunt, you've married from your maternal uncle, from your maternal aunt, you've married the slaves, the people you set free, you've married them, right? But if any woman gives herself to the prophet, and the prophet wishes to marry her, this is only for you, Muhammad, excluding other believers, then it is okay, because Allah is forgiving and merciful. So, in order that there will be no discomfort upon Muhammad, he is free, it's okay. Allah has exempted, Allah personally exempted Muhammad from the four wife limit that was obeyed for years. The law applied to everyone except him, so that there will be no discomfort upon Muhammad if he chooses to marry any wife after all the ones that he has married. So this is not a hostile interpretation. This is exactly how the classic Sunni commentaries understand the verse. Alright? This is Tafheem al-Quran, Surah chapter 33 verse 50. This is a rejoinder to the charge against the prophet while he forbade others from marrying more than one wife at a time. He himself had taken a 5th wife. God, however, declares in the Quran that it was he, so God is declaring in the Quran that it was he himself who sanctioned the prophet's 5th marriage, and that it was he who placed the above restriction on all Muslims but exempted the prophet from the same. So you can find it in Tafheem, as Tafheem al-Quran, Surah 33 verse 50. So this person is testifying. A mainstream classic Sunni commentary openly acknowledges that this verse was revealed specifically to answer the objection that Muhammad was breaking his own law. It was an answer to the objection. So people were saying, why do you want to marry this? Why do you want to marry again if you gave the law? But then the revelation came and God exempted him from that law by special revelation. The contrast with the God of the Bible does not work like this. When David committed adultery with Bathsheba, God did not spend a special revelation exempting David from the 10th commandment. He sent the prophet Nathan to confront David. David repented in dust and ashes. When Moses struck down the rock in anger, God did not send a special revelation excusing it. He didn't say Moses is nice. He brought people out of Egypt, right? So therefore it's okay. God told Moses that he would not enter the promised land. The God of the Bible holds prophets to the highest standard. And here is why I think so. You know God better than you act. You know better than you're behaving. And that's why I think that God never excused their mistakes. He held them to the highest standard. But in the Quran, the prophet is held to a different standard. Even Jesus came and he said, that he didn't come to destroy the law, but to fulfill it. Jesus followed the law. But the Quran is different. A more lenient standard was given to the Prophet Muhammad, a standard that conveniently expands with time to accommodate his own appetite. Something smells fishy. Malachi chapter 3 verse 6 from the scriptures, from the Bible, it says, "For I am the Lord and I change it not." This is not the pattern of God who declared, "I change not." This is the pattern of a man writing for himself, claiming a voice of a God that he does not have. The third case study is the honey incident. The third case study is perhaps the most embarrassing of all, because it concerns not a marriage, not a war, not a great matter of state, but a jar of honey. The account is preserved in Sahih al-Bukhari in the chapter of divorce. According to Sahih al-Bukhari, volume 7, book 63, hadith 192, Muhammad was in the habit of spending time alone with one of his wives, either Hafsat or Zaynab, depending on which version of reports you read, because she would feed him honey. So one version says Zaynab would feed him honey. Hafsat, one version will say Hafsat fed him honey, right? Because he loved honey, right? So we know that either one of these ladies fed Muhammad honey, and he loved spending time with the wife because he loved honey, and they fed him, one of them fed him honey. So the other wives became jealous. They plotted together to embarrass him. When he came to each of them in turn, they would say, "We smell something bad on you. You have eaten magafir," right? A foul-smelling plant raisin. Muhammad, embarrassed, saying, would deny it. He insisted that he had only eaten honey. But after multiple wives complained of the same smell, remember they had a meeting and decided to embarrass him. So of course they were all saying the same thing. After multiple wives complained of the same smell from Muhammad, he became so distressed that he made an oath, a religious vow, that he will never eat honey again. Then the revelation descended. Quran chapter 63 verse 1. O Prophet, why do you prohibit yourself what Allah has made lawful for you, seeking the approval of your wives? And Allah is forgiving and merciful. Verse 2. Allah had already ordained for you the dissolution of your oaths, and Allah is your protector. He is the knowing, the wise. Verse 3 and 4. And remember when the prophet confided to one of his wives a statement, and when she informed another of it, and Allah showed it to him and made known part of it and ignored a part. And when he informed her about it, she said, "Who told you this?" He said, "I was informed by the knowing of the acquainted. If you two wives repent to Allah, it is best for your hearts to have deviated. But if you cooperate with them against him, then indeed Allah is his protector." Verse 5. Perhaps his Lord, if he divorces you, would substitute for him wives better than you, submitting to Allah, believing, devoutly obedient, repentant, worshipping, and traveling, previously married and virgin. So what is going on here? Let's read the verses again carefully and let's examine what's really going on here. The God who is, according to the Islam theology, the creator of the heaven and the earth, sovereign to the universe, the Lord of all that exists, has just intervened in a personal and, marital fight that was going on at home between a man and his wives about a jar of honey. He rebukes Muhammad for trying to answer his wives, because he was asking, "Why are you trying to respond to all your wives?" He releases Muhammad from his oath to give up honey. Remember, Muhammad loves honey, right? And now Allah is telling Muhammad, you can release yourself from that oath, right? He threatens the wives that if they continue to, plan against him, to plot against him, he will divorce them on Muhammad's behalf and replace them with better wives, submitting, believing, devout, obedient virgins and previously married. Compare this to the God of the Bible, the God who spoke from Sinai with fire and thunder, literally, the God who declared, be ye holy as I am holy, the God whose dealings with his prophets concerned the redemption of the world. You can't make fun of that God. So, is what we are reading something else? Is it from God, or were these words from a man himself? Case study 4. This one is the most consequential because its effect on Islamic law have lasted 400 years and continue to this day. In the year 627 AD, during a military expedition, Muhammad's favorite wife Aisha, by then around 13 or 14 years old, was left behind by accident when her caravan moved at night. She had stepped away from her camel litter to receive a lost necklace. The camel drivers, thinking she was still inside, departed without her. The next morning, a young Muslim soldier named Safwan ibn al-Mutal, I think I'm pronouncing that right, who had been bringing up the rear of the army, found her alone in the desert. He placed her on his camel and led her back to the army on foot. They arrived in Medina together. Rumors spread immediately. Some among the Muslims openly accused Aisha of adultery with Safwan. Muhammad himself was tormented for nearly a month, according to the most detailed account in Sahih al-Bukhari. He became cold towards Aisha. He consulted his closest advisors. According to one report in Ali ibn al-Talib, Muhammad's cousin and the future son-in-law suggested that Aisha should be divorced. And then weeks after agony, a revelation came down. Quran chapter 24, verse 11. Indeed, those who came with falsehood are a group among you. Do you think it is bad for you? Rather, it is good for you. For every person among them is what punishment he has earned from the sin, and he who took upon himself the greater portion thereof, for him is a great punishment. Why, when you heard it, did not the believing men and the believing women think of good of one another and say, this is obvious falsehood? Why did they who slander not produce the 4 witnesses? And when they did not produce the witnesses, then they said, then is it they in the sight of Allah are all liars. So Aisha was exonerated. The accusers were declared liars. In the process, in the same revelation, a new legal standard was established for the entire Muslim community. And this standard was kind of like a 4-witness standard. It means that if someone is accused of adultery and all of those things, there has to be 4 witnesses to that accusation. Without 4 witnesses, the accuser is a liar. Think about this rule and what it does. In practice, the Islamic legal jurisdiction across 400 years, this verse has meant that rape victims cannot prove their assault if they don't have 4 witnesses. A woman is raped unless she happens to be raped in front of 4 male Muslim witnesses, 4 female Muslim witnesses. If there are no 4 witnesses, then the claim has no legal resource. She becomes the accused. If she names her attacker without producing 4 witnesses, she herself can be prosecuted for slander and many times even put to death. This is not theoretical. This happens in real Islamic courts in living memory. The Hudud Ordinance in Pakistan, in force from 1979 to 2006, prosecuted hundreds of rape victims under this rule. They were accused of zina, which is fornication, because they could not produce 4 witnesses to their assault. So, if somebody rapes a woman, she becomes a fornicator unless she has 4 witnesses to back up the assault. That's clearly what it means. So where does this rule come from? Is this from Allah, who is supposed to be just and merciful? It came directly from a man who is trying to exonerate his wife from accusations. The fix for one woman, for her reputation, became a legal framework that has buried countless of other women for justice for 14 centuries. This is not how God is supposed to work, and this is definitely not the God of the Bible. This is the pattern of a man that is solving his own immediate problems and appetites using God. So what does the Bible show us? All the evidences, and we can go on and on and on, all the evidences that we have read only has a meaning in contrast to something better. It means that if there is something better to compare it to, then the evidences against Islam remains legal and it remains logical, right? What does it look like when a real prophet receives a real word from a real God? What does it mean when the human appetite is confronted by divine truth? 2 Samuel chapter 11 verse 2 to 4. King David sees Bathsheba bathing on the roof. He desires her. He sends for her. He sleeps with her. She conceives, and to cover it up, he arranged for her husband Uriah to be killed in battle. Does that sound familiar? It sounds exactly like what Muhammad did. He sees somebody, naked, undressed, desires her, right? And then all of a sudden, Allah is in support of him marrying her. Or Allah himself married her if he desires her. So if only Muhammad desires any woman, and it's the same thing we see with Aisha, which we're going to come back to later, where he desired her as a prebusant girl before the age of 9 or 6 or 9, and then because he desires her, Allah gave a revelation to marry her. 2 Samuel chapter 12 verse 1 to 7, or verse 1 and verse 7. And the Lord sent Nathan to David, and he came unto him, and Nathan said to David, Thou art the man. So this was the Lord telling David through the prophet Nathan that you are the man that is being accused of murder and fornication. God need not send a verse accepting the kings because of, personal or sentimental reasons. God did not declare that he was supposed to be married to Bathsheba from the beginnings or from the heavens. God sent a prophet to rebuke him, to strip his sins bare, to call him to repentance. And David did exactly that. He was called to repentance. He did not write a revelation or a psalm justifying himself. He wrote Psalm 51, verse 1 to 4. Have mercy upon me, O God, according to thy loving kindness, for I have acknowledged my transgressions. My sin is ever before me. Against thee, only thee have I sinned, and have done evil in their sight. This is the difference between the God of the Bible and the God that Muhammad conjured. The difference is this: when a God or when a prophet of God truly sins, the God of the heavens rebukes him. When the prophet of a false God sins, that God from heaven justifies him. The voice that excuses a man's appetite is not the voice of the Most High or the voice of the one that created the heavens and the earth. This is the voice of a man full of his own desires, baptized in the language of revelation, of false revelation. Muhammad needed a fifth wife. The voice said, you are exempted. Muhammad wanted to marry his adopted son's wife. The voice says, you are exempted, and annulled the adoption he had with his son for years. Muhammad was caught in domestic squabbles over honey with his wives. The voice rebuked the wives and threatened them with replacement. Muhammad's favorite wife was under suspicion for adultery or fornication. the voice cleared her, leaving entire communities of women, entire lineage of women to unjust rule and law. Every revelation conveniently served Muhammad, and the most authoritative within the Sunni Islam is his own wife. And because that law, that voice still speaks today when women are killed because they have no witness. So women either have to stay silent in injustice or they die because they can't produce 4 witnesses. And usually men, because the voices of women were not necessarily credible back in the day. See you in episode 3.